everybody, and welcome back to the Couchside Judges. I'm Scott Fontana. Follow me on Twitter at Scott_Fontana.
And I'm Dan Urban. Follow me at the Dan Urban. Follow the podcast at Couchside Judges. And subscribe to us wherever you listen.
And we're a day late, but it's not too late for you to give us that 5-star review.
And as always, we talk judging in MMA. So make sure you read that criteria. We're working on getting it much more easier access for you.
We will get to that. How's the progress on our
We're working
our
on it.
method?
I'm thinking of adding, if we can get a link on the Linktree.
Okay.
To
That would be helpful.
To the criteria.
I think that would be really good for our listeners because, you know, most of our listeners don't know what fighting is. So
As evident by this week.
Not true. I kid. But obviously, we're a day late again. This time, no one's sick. Fortunately, everyone's all healthy.
Yeah. Blame the Super Bowl.
Blame the Super Bowl because I worked on that stuff until 2 a.m. on Sunday, and we said, you know what? Let's just do it another night.
Yeah.
So we did. We pushed it back a night. Hopefully, this weekend we'll get back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Yeah, I feel like the Giants won the Super Bowl.
They didn't though.
But I feel like they did because the main guy who caused them to win was a Giant this year at some point. So I feel like I got another ring.
I kind of reject that premise, but I will say if you want to feel like the Giants won because the Eagles lost, that makes sense to me, and I approve.
Well, that just makes it better.
Yeah, no, but that's really the only thing because
Tony.
Yeah,
Tony.
Eagles,
I did not like Tony for a while. He gave me something. I wish him nothing but great success anymore because he stuck
Kadarius Toney.
Yeah, he stuck it to Philly. I'm so glad he did.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get on to fighting.
All right, let's get to fighting. That's true. Eagles suck, but. But yeah, we've obviously had a big fight over the weekend. Massive fight.
Great fight.
I think it just felt epic to me, like all the way through. Like it's not like I was like
Crowd
giddy
made
or
it.
anything like that. Well, yeah, I mean, but even like the lead up, like it wasn't promoted very heavily. I would say I wouldn't say I bought into that whole like UFC's not promoting it kind of deal. But I would say we've seen more hyped major fights than this. I think that's probably an accurate description.
Yeah, Brendan Fitzgerald was trying to defend the promotion of this event last week.
I don't think they did something wrong. I think they could have gone bigger because this was big, but it just didn't go that way. Nonetheless, it felt like a big fight to me. Like I don't care what the UFC's promotional machine is doing. I can identify because I'm going to watch every week anyway, right? Like you're going to watch every week.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch every week. It doesn't really matter for people like you and me.
Lil Wayne may not be watching anymore.
Why is that?
I think he was upset because Volkanovski lost, so he's not going to watch anymore or something like that.
All right. Well, sorry to see you go, Wheezy. I was always more of a Manny Fresh guy anyway.
Mm.
Yeah, big timers.
Yeah, it's good.
They're still fly.
I'm wearing gator boots right now.
With the pimped out Gucci suit.
Yes.
Nice. Yeah, this fight, honestly, because, again, we're watching this all the time, this always felt big to me. And then when obviously, the walkout to the cage was big, too. Massive reception for the home countryman, the Aussie.
It was a scene.
It was impressive. I heard, I think I just saw a tweet, actually, from Mikey Bone from MMA Junkie saying, and he was on his way out of Perth, and saying that as many events as he's been to, this was pretty much an all-timer as far as the kind of the feeling, the reception, being there for that moment as the crowd welcomed him coming out. That was pretty cool to hear, and it felt that way. It kind of confirmed what we felt, I think, from home.
Mm-hmm.
But the question I guess I would have here, because obviously it went the way of Makhachev, good fight, close fight, competitive fight, felt epic, bell to bell. I feel like. It wasn't like, I won't say this is like fight of the year caliber. It probably is like the clubhouse leader for fight
it's
of the
leader
year.
at the moment.
But like this won't, I don't think this will stand, but it was still a really good fight and it just felt epic the whole way through. But the question I would have for you is, would you want to see a rematch down the line? Do you think it's something that is of interest to you, or do you think maybe this one-off should be just the one-off?
Well,
and I don't mean right away. I'm not saying right away.
My initial reaction was like, you know what? These two just fight that's your next 10 fights is versus each other.
Really?
That was my initial reaction, but then I was like, wait, first Beneil deserves a shot.
Mm-hmm.
And Yair deserves a shot. Let's finish that. If Islam walks through Beneil and Volk walks through Yair, then the next 10 fights is Volk versus Islam.
You would do it that quickly. Wow, I'm surprised.
What else are you gonna do?
Would you get spoiled by the Moreno Figueiredo quadrilogy? Tetralogy?
No. I mean, this was the first time Islam's really been tested.
Yeah, sure.
Outside of getting knocked out, but
sure, but this, he kind of had a little bit of a jump up in competition, even just to get that title fight last time out too. So he skipped over a few of the natural top guys, which I don't have a problem with.
Well,
I think his record spoke for himself, and obviously he passed the eye test. He is the champion. He's now beaten 2 guys who have been champions in the last year. So
although
impressive.
Technically, he struggled a little bit without Khabib there. Just saying.
I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
saying.
I think they had a phone call and Khabib was pointing out some things that could have been helpful or something like that. He was saying,
all right.
But nonetheless, I mean, I want to see this fight again. I do. I'm very okay with it being in like a year or two. You know, maybe like when I say a year or two, I really do mean like 2 years. Let them have a few fights in their divisions. If they're still at the top, make it happen. That'd be okay with me.
All right.
Yeah,
fine.
Because there's enough fighters at both divisions. You know, like let's say Arnold Allen somehow goes out there and beats Max Holloway. I don't want Max Holloway. I don't want Arnold Allen to not get a shot. I don't want him to wait. He's already put together in a massive streak, and to beat Max Holloway would be something else, right?
Oh, well, if he beats Max, that's
what I'm saying. There's a different
big
thing here. And obviously, Yair would still have to get precedence because he's got the trinket belt, the number 1 contender's belt. Yeah. There's guys at 45. I think probably though after those, it starts to look a little easier to say, well, maybe Volk could go back up again, you know, or maybe he even just leaves the division. Maybe he's just like, I'm done. I'll actually go to 55 and I'll just compete there and get the belt, get another title shot naturally. Who knows? But Makhachev has so much more. I wouldn't say work to be done, but there's a lot of guys that we would like to see him, I think, face, right?
I mean, I guess you got to throw Poirier in the mix.
Poirier for sure.
But Beneil #1, as long as he beats Charles, I think it's kind of weak that he has to even fight Charles for a shot. But if he beats Charles, that just solidifies him even more. So
yeah. What about let's say someone like Justin Gaethje goes out there and beats Rafael Fiziev, or vice versa. I think either one of them would be an interesting fight too. I would still favor, I think, probably Islam just because of the skill set, but yeah, these are there's a lot of fights at 55.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of fights each way.
But that's why I don't necessarily feel like this is the division where you got to keep going at them like you're saying 10 times in a row.
But I would do it 10 times in a row.
That's fair.
Just because I enjoyed it so much.
I'm surprised you really enjoyed it that much. I'm glad you did, for sure. But to that degree, that surprised me.
Yeah. Also, I want to point out, Sean Sheehan pointed this out, that the judges are not swayed by home cooking. This is a fight evident of that.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So,
and then, well, none of these judges were local judges either.
Right, I know, but you see the crowd going absolutely insane with everything that Volk does.
Yeah, I think the idea of like these home cooking judges, especially in the UFC level, is a little far fetched.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I mean, I can't even speak to what it was before. You know, I certainly, for a time at least, bought into the whole, they go to Brazil, got to be careful. Judge, back 10, 12 years ago, when pretty much you just kind of bought into what you were told, right? I saw the answer for myself now, and I don't see that in modern MMA, at least in the UFC. So
I saw a couple comments. I had to refrain from responding that the 2 UK judges and the US judge really had a lot invested in the Aussie guy.
Yeah, they did.
But I refrained.
Yeah.
So
then who should get the next crack? Is it Makhachev? Is it definitely Beneil Dariush? What if he loses, though?
Beneil loses, just go straight to Poirier.
Okay. All right.
And then
I guess that would be my question, was where to go from there, because it certainly could happen the other way. You wouldn't just give it to Oliveira. You wouldn't give him a second chance.
I would just give it to Dustin. Like, let's get it over with. He deferred it basically to fight Conor.
Yeah, but he did get his title shot and then he lost.
That was to Khabib.
No, you're forgetting about the Charles Oliveira fight.
I am forgetting about that. Oh yeah, you know what? Get him out of there. I don't know. I think I'm just so locked in on Beneil Dariush.
And then there's, of course, by the way, the if Conor McGregor goes out and somehow beats Michael Chandler at a fight to be determined, if they wanted to, they'll just put him in a
winnable fight.
And there's, of course, the history with the Dagestan boys. Maybe Khabib will go to that one. Maybe Dylan will even be there. Probably not.
Ah, boy.
Probably
boy.
Not. But anyway, on to the 45-pound division, though. We talked a little bit about it. Yair is calling for Volkanovski to unify the title in September in Mexico City. What do you think of that?
I love the idea of unifying it. I hate the idea that I have to wait 7 months for it. That's just insane. Just because you want to fight in Mexico City, come on, just fight in May already.
My hope is that Volkanovski will say, no, I want to do it sooner, and UFC will be on board with that. Although I do like, listen, I get it. I get why they would do Mexico City and why they might even wait for it, but I hope they don't. Keep it moving. I'm okay with it moving. And I don't think Volkanovski is the one who's trying to be inactive. I know for a while you were dissatisfied with his level of activity. I think he's been fighting consistently now.
I think he's doing it for me.
He's did it just for you.
So yeah, Volk will. I think he wants to do it right away. So not right away, but
as soon as he's able, probably.
Yeah.
And on the UFC's calendar, which of course is kind of what dictates how often these guys can defend their titles anyway.
It does.
Yeah. You have to like it, but that's the way it is, man. Another reason why I can
like
understand why you're a little more annoyed with the UFC lately. Although that's not new.
I'm quite annoyed with them still for that card.
I understand.
That card that we shall not name.
Let time heal all wounds. We're moving away from that one, sir. Let's stick to this one here. There were 26 rounds scored for this pay-per-view UFC 284. 18 of them in 284, 283. It's 284.
It's 284.
I just blanked for a second. Yeah, there were 18 rounds that were unanimous, so the percentage was sitting at 69.2. Average is usually about 70, 71, 72, so they're kind of just right there.
Yeah.
That's about average. So I don't think this was one of those cards where you had like an unnatural amount of rounds that weren't unanimous that we have seen before when we go either down under or to New Zealand or kind of that area of the world where the judges who frequently work in Australia and that kind of area end up working those events as well. It didn't really manifest that way. I think this was a pretty natural in terms of agreement card here. But that does mean we do have 8 rounds for contested rounds that we're going to get into here. So let's dive right into it, starting with the main event. Because, of course, it was 49-46 and 2 48-47s. A lot of people thought it could go the other way for Volkanovski. I can understand why there's some close rounds in there that could kind of flip it. But let's only talk about round 3 in particular here, because this one actually was split on the cards. So, Dan, what's happening here?
Yeah, I think this is the round where, in my eyes, Volkanovski, the momentum started to shift in his favor. It seemed like he was getting the better of the striking on the feet. He's able to keep it standing, and he's counter wrestling really well. He's like defending, and then he's going on the offensive with the wrestling against the cage. And I didn't really expect him to do that, but it seemed like he was kind of wearing Islam down a little bit. I think Volk landed better upstairs. His leg kicks in this round were really good. Big deciding factor. He lands a big flurry against the fence. I do think it was a very close round, but I think close but clear for Volk.
I mean, this was the first of the 4 rounds, first 4 rounds really, where Volkanovski wasn't hurt or taken down and kept down for a while by Islam. And that's a credit to Islam because he did a lot of stuff really well in those first 3 rounds. I don't know if this was necessarily close but clear. I think it's a close enough round. I think you can make a reasonable case the other way because there's just not a whole lot of big action happening even from Volkanovski here.
I thought the leg kicks and the big flurry were what put it over for me.
No, I mean I would say that's probably fair.
I'm misspeaking when I say close but clear.
Oh, I see.
But close round.
Close round, yeah. But you could see the other way, right?
Yeah. Okay, I got no issue.
Gotcha.
If someone scored it for
I was gonna say when you said close but clear, I mean, you know how we usually use that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so okay, just making sure. Yeah, I think I had a close round, and I also sided with Volkanovski here. I felt good about my score, but I also felt, you know what, it's okay because I wasn't necessarily thinking it would be a split round, but I'm not surprised it was because again, there wasn't this fight in particular. I would say for the first 3 rounds especially, there weren't like giant moments that distanced one guy from the other. There were some good moments on one side, but then there would be some good moments on the other. And then there really weren't a whole lot of like major things that happened either. It was like, I don't want to say it was like low output because it wasn't quite that, but we certainly didn't see the typical high volume output that we get from an Alexander Volkanovski fight. And we didn't see, at least for the first 3 rounds, any of those moments where Makhachev gets it down, gets into his world, and is very clearly winning in the grappling to the point where you can't give it the other way. Round 1, I think, felt good for a Makhachev round, and I think round 2 was kind of, I wouldn't have been surprised if that one was split, but I had it for Volkanovski as well, or excuse me, Makhachev.
Yeah, I had Makhachev round 2. That was a really competitive round. Volk lands a lot of shots early, but these are like low impact shots, really.
Mm-hmm.
Even the one where he kind of wobbles him, I think it's more Makhachev shooting at the same time as he's getting hit.
Mm-hmm.
And then later in the round, Makhachev's hitting him with some heavy shots. I think the immediate impact there is definitely in Makhachev's favor.
Yeah, I think so too. It was just a little more effective there. But yeah, so as far as round 3 goes, yeah, it's a close round. We're both on the same page giving this one to Volkanovski. We saw it the same way as those 2 UK judges you mentioned, Ben Cartledge and David Letheby. It was Derek Cleary, the US judge you mentioned, who saw it for Makhachev, and yeah, that's okay. Especially in a round like this, where someone steps in the wrong way, gets in the way of one strike that lands, and you can't see it clear enough, or maybe you have a better view than the TV did, or something like that. You never know.
Really, what this whole fight is Volkanovski was expected to lose pretty handily, or people.
He was by the betters. I didn't expect that.
People expected him, and then he did better than expected. So then they're like, oh, he must be winning.
Expectancy bias, definitely. Yeah.
So
I think that was part of it.
That's what's playing a big role, I think.
Yes and no, because I do think you can. I mean, absolutely, round 3 is a Volkanovski round, and it was the biggest round by any individual.
Round 5, you mean?
Round 5, excuse me. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, round 5 was easily the biggest round by any of them, and it was definitely a Volkanovski round. The fact that we both side, as my water rattles here, or my soda rattles here, the fact that you can give round 2 to Volkanovski and make a reasonable case, and we saw it that way. We sided with 2 of the 3 judges, so that's 4 out of 5 of us. Or what?
Round 3, you mean?
Round 3. What am I talking about here? Numbers. Round 2, I think, is the one that it's like, okay, even though this was not split on the judges, and I didn't see it the opposite way of the judges, I can understand why some people would have gone that way. I thought it was a close round.
It is pretty close, but the stronger score is Makhachev.
Yeah, I think so too. But put it this way. If 2 judges in this fight happen to have given round 2 to Volkanovski, could you sit there and be like, gee, I don't know about that one?
I would still score at Makhachev.
Mm-hmm.
And I would.
So, we would probably couch side override it.
Yeah, I would say the cage side perspective, maybe Volk was landing better than it seemed on TV.
Sure.
So
wouldn't bother me is really what I'm getting down here.
Yeah,
I don't think this would be some sort of robbery if it went.
Plus,
the other
we like
way.
Volkanovski.
Oh yeah, I mean, well now you do. You got over your annoyance with his.
He gave me he put on a showcase performance in April like he was supposed to versus Zombie. So while I was there, so
there you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the point being, obviously, there was only this one split round. I would say round 4 is something we should really talk about, though, too, because there was that moment in the round, and I think most people tended to agree that was a Makhachev round, but there was the moment, of course, later in the round where Makhachev has the body triangle on Volkanovski. He's trying to work for something, but he's not really getting anything. He's not landing any strikes in the middle, but he's clearly got a dominant position and the body triangle. And then Volkanovski is just punching him backward, right?
He's throwing punches behind his head, landing a couple. These are not strong punches. They're not
fight-ending punches, or even that would lead to an end.
I think they're less than a jab. Like
they look more like. I think what it is they look good. They definitely fired up a very friendly crowd, 100%.
I want to say him talking fired them up more.
I think it was a little bit of both. I mean, because when they see Makhachev just holding on, not doing anything, not accomplishing anything, I could say, anything new, and you've got Volkanovski sitting there and he's throwing punches and nothing's coming back at him, and he's not trying to defend chokes or anything like that. People in the crowd especially see that as like, hey, that's our guy. You lay it into him, but.
They forgot the 3 shots that Makhachev landed on the feet before it got there.
But also, I mean, there's that. But also, like, when you're talking about effective striking and grappling, right? Which is, it's not damage. It's effective striking and grappling. That's what we're evaluating in this particular round, or in any round, really. But in this particular sequence, let's think about that. If it's effective in terms of getting closer to finishing the fight, right? That's kind of the theory behind this. The body triangle in that position is getting closer to the potential finish of that fight because of the grappling dominance there, the effective grappling, having the body triangle on the back in control, a position he chooses to be in, and Volkanovski chooses not to be in, or doesn't choose to be in.
He did not want to be there.
He didn't want to be there.
He could not get out, is why he resorted to throwing punches, because that's the only thing he could have done.
It's one of those things that fighters can do to keep busy, and certainly that can potentially lead to some sort of psychological edge, maybe here or down the road, but it's not going to get scored typically by the judges. And the 3 judges scoring it that way, I think, bore out. I don't think you'd find many judges who you'd sub in there and would give that round to Volkanovski. I think it would be very hard to find judges who would go in there and give that round to Volkanovski.
Yeah, I don't like the score for Volkanovski in this round.
Yeah, but you know what? The judges got it right.
Yeah,
it's all that matters. I don't have anything else to say about this fight. I think we covered it pretty well, especially the round scoring there.
We got it.
Let's move on though to this was the curtain jerker of the night, and I know this one surprised the heck out of you. You watched it live. I did not watch it live. I actually kind of forgot that it was starting at that particular time, so I missed it live, and I turned it on. I was like, oh, guess I missed that. And of course, anytime I miss a fight like this, it's usually the one where it's like, yeah, we got to talk about all 3 rounds. So hey, let's talk about all 3 rounds. Even though 2 of them are contested rounds. One of them we might as well just talk about because especially the way you had it scored, right?
Mm-hmm.
That fight, Elvis Brenner getting the win by split decision over Zubair Tukhugov, 30-27, 29-28, and 28-29. So we've got 3 different scores. It's rounds 1 and 2 that are split. So let's at least start with those, starting with 1.
Yeah, round 1. This was a close round. Probably the closest round, I think. A feeling out for a while. Brenner did well with the leg kicks and had a nice jumping knee early. After that, he really didn't land too much upstairs. Tukhugov landed the heavier punches, but not all that many of them. I think Tukhugov is slightly more effective in this round. It's very close. Tukhugov is bleeding. Point that out. So I don't know what the visual on that is, but I do think this round was very close. You can go either way, but I think it was 10-9 Tukhugov.
I also had a 10-9 Tukhugov, but I was really torn here. It's like super, super torn especially because of that damage. I think that it's cumulative damage. It's not in the worst spot, but it's not in a great spot. It's above his eyebrows or his brow line. That can get into potential problems there. You don't want that. I think that's something to account for. You wonder about it, and maybe I didn't grade it well enough. I don't know. Maybe that's a fault of mine. But I did score this one for Tukhugov. But again, super, super close. I was very torn.
Yeah, this was a very close round, and going either way, I got no issue which way you go.
Yeah. So. The judges broke it down as Derek Cleary scored this one for Brenner, and Evan Field, local judge in Australia, scored this one for Brenner. It was Barry Foley,
your boy,
Barry Foley of all judges, that scored it for Tukhugov, just like you and me. So what does that mean?
Couchside override.
Barry Foley. My goodness. Not the judge I expected to get a couchside override. I have to admit that one. But I also want to point out that I took the time because this was a fight that I think a lot of people were talking about. I said, you know what? Let's get another judge's input on this, like an actual working judge. So I asked a judge if they would anonymously give their thoughts on this fight. So got a little bit of notes for you. We'll start with round 1 here, which was described as laser close. Probably, had more to do with kind of based on where your view was, and they had it by 2 strikes. Brenner 10-9. Okay. But also you'd have to account for the consideration of the damage caused by Brenner that would help tip it. So again, maybe I didn't account for the damage as well as I ought to have.
All right.
But that's just one judge's opinion, and none of the judges who actually worked this. We'll leave that judge's name out of this one, though. Round 2, we've also got to talk about here because, again, this one was split too. So what happened in round 2?
Scott, I did not take many notes on this round because I did not think we'd have to talk about it.
Okay. Well, we do.
I do
Surprise.
Right, so I did my notes, and these notes probably reflect how I would explain it, like in a postmortem at a show. I thought it was a pretty clear round for Tukhugov. He landed the best strikes of the round. Brenner didn't have the volume nor the impact. I thought it was clear for Tukhugov.
Yeah, I thought this was a Tukhugov round too. I felt pretty good about this one. And the judges, cage side, Derek Cleary and Barry Foley both had this one for Tukhugov as well. It was Evan Field who was split off to give this one to Brenner. A surprise, I would say. Maybe not the strongest score, in my opinion.
I would agree.
You never know. Maybe you're just missing certain views and that kind of thing, and just these things can happen. But I would say ended up on the wrong end here, Judge Field, excuse me. For our actual, again, anonymous judges' input, we had, although it was a 10-9 Tukhugov round as well, and although Brenner had some decent moments, Tukhugov had a lead by the end of the round, a solid lead. Yeah, that was a description there. So judges aren't necessarily going to sit there and be like, hey, this got it wrong, but that's they're giving their assessments, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I feel like that's a pretty accurate way to say it. I think it was a clear round.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it was overly not close, but I wouldn't say it was close but clear either. You know what I mean?
Just a clear round.
Yeah. So not the strongest score. We'll probably have to add that one to the consideration for the end of the year. Talking about some scores, maybe that weren't the strongest of the year that we can kind of revisit and say, hey, where are we at?
Mm-hmm.
We haven't done that in the past. I think this is the year we're going to do that. Fingers crossed, knock on wood, whatever you want to do. Round 3 was not split. All 3 judges had this one for Brenner. But I know when you watched this, you were saying that you couldn't have really seen a path for Brenner to get this score, right? You had this one for Tuhugov.
I had round 3 for Tuhugov. I amended that. I said, maybe round 3 was closer than we actually thought.
Mm-hmm. Having watched it again, are you saying?
No, just rethinking over it.
I see.
Over it.
You didn't bother to
I didn't rewatch it. No.
All right. Just
because it was. Why don't we just get into the round?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Tuhugov, he continues landing good shots upstairs and some pretty hard ones. But in this round, he uses a lot of clinching and wrestling against the fence here. Never gets the takedown, so it's a lot of ineffective running out the clock, essentially. When they're separated, Brenner is landing some decent strikes. I just think Tuhugov landed heavier and more effectively.
Okay.
Getting the better reactions when Brenner got hit. But Brenner kept pace with this round, and all that wrestling and clinching really wasn't scoring much. But I'm 10-9 Tuhugov. I can see why someone would score it for Brenner, though, thinking back on it.
I don't think I actually scored this round. I think I watched this round and then kind of neglected to score it. I don't know if I just got distracted or whatever. When I get distracted and I don't bother to go back, I don't want to give a score. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's fair. But I can give you, again, our anonymous judge here gave some notes on it, said that they gave this round to Brenner 10-9, just as close as round 1, but without the damage. Brenner had just kind of the smallest amount of more strikes. Tipping point could be the spin back fist is probably, the hardest strike in that round, right? And also in the last minute, Brenner lands a nice heavy body kick, razor thin, elbows on the head while Tuhugov is holding him versus Cage, kind of clinching multiple times there, but it's enough to tip it. So that was
all right.
That was fair. Kind of the thing in there. Does that sound right?
I don't care if you get to Brenner with rounds 1 and 3,
mm-hmm.
but round 2, come on.
Okay. Yeah, I think so too. I think that's probably the most surprising here. But yeah, I mean, you can give this fight to Brenner. There's no robbery here, despite the fact that we saw a score that was maybe just didn't suit the situation.
Yeah, 2 wasn't
not the strongest score.
No,
not a great score. Probably one of the worst scores we've had that we've discussed this early year.
Yeah.
We've only had a few events, so hopefully we don't have too many of those. We always we don't root for them.
No, come on, give us more.
No, stop it. I want judging to be good. Stop it. Don't root for violence. Well, violence. Yeah. Violence that ends the fight in the first round every time.
Like this next fight was supposed to.
This fight was, well, anything at 205 and above, you can't, it's just kind of a crapshoot. So, yeah, Jimmy Crute, moving on to the next fight. Jimmy Crute getting the majority draw with Alonzo Menefield. And he saved himself because of, let's say, some mistakes on Alonzo Menefield's part.
Yeah.
We'll get to that later because that's in round 3. The split round was round 2 after a particularly bad start for Crute. So what's happening in round 2?
Yeah, this was a crazy round. Crute is basically out on his feet. Menefield keeps cracking
from the start of because of the previous
round. Yeah. Menefield just keeps cracking him in the head with shots, but he makes a mistake by deciding to clinch with Crute against the fence and basically let him take over the round from here. Crute got a few shots in later in the round. Menefield had him hurt bad, like I said. Once Crute gets it to the ground, though, and lands a couple shots, he's looking for a good choke. I don't think the choke was ever under the chin. He might have just been going for the face crush there.
Yeah.
I don't think he had the energy to actually finish that from there without being an actual legit choke. I don't think the strikes were all that heavy on top. And I think the damage that Menefield put on early in the round surpassed everything. So 10-9 Menefield.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the damage at the beginning, the strike-based damage in this fight coming off in this round coming off of Menefield. That's what felt the most effective to this round. I would say it's certainly possible for Crute to have come back and taken it if you happen to see it that way, and if you thought that was a good attack at the end, because hey, who's closer to ending the fight, you know?
Yeah, I mean, Menifield gives the thumbs up.
He does,
Like,
but I mean, you can. He also knows the bell's coming too, so maybe he just feels like he can make it, and is putting on posturing. You never know.
Well, I'll tell you
just
a
don't
funny
know.
story about me knowing the bell's coming on.
Okay.
Stuck in a toe hold. I looked at the clock. It's 8 seconds till the round's. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to tap.
This is what, Naga or
No, this is practice.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, I'm not going to tap to this. I'm just going to 8 seconds,
Mm-hmm.
and next thing boom, pop.
Yeah.
Ankle pops. I'm like, oh.
Well, that was not smart of you.
All right, that was a good idea.
See, I don't wait out leg locks. Like it's been a long time since I've really grappled, to be perfectly honest. But if I was in a grappling scenario when I was grappling, I didn't just like hit the panic button the moment someone was going for a leg lock, right?
Mm.
Because, it's a natural thing to be like, yo, I don't want any piece of that. Like, I'm just here to learn and have some fun and not like limit my ability to do things outside of the gym, right? We're not training to fight. But I would say if I felt like someone kind of had me in something and I was a little concerned about it, I'm not looking at that bell. Dude, I'll tap it 1 second. F it.
Well, it depends.
I want to walk. I want to walk home.
Leg locks always depend on how reckless and aggressive the person was.
I mean, there's part of it too.
And I was
course.
like, okay, you dive on it. You win. You got it.
There were some good leg lock specialists in that gym too.
Good times.
Yeah. But yeah, so both of us had Menifield here, same as again those UK judges that we were talking about, Cartledge and Leatherby, and it was the US judge that we were talking about, Derek Cleary. I can't talk tonight. I don't know. It's been a long weekend. He had this one for Crute. Again, I don't think it's crazy to go the other way than
I really got no issue with it.
But yeah, I definitely felt like Menifield probably was the score that I was comfortable with. But of course, he lost a point and he lost round 3, so I would have had it as a draw. And why did he lose that point in round 3, sir?
Well, Crute was about to take him down right away, and he grabbed the fence, prevented the takedown. Mark Goddard said, no, stop. We're taking a point. That is fight changing.
How do you feel about that?
I like it.
I like it too.
I'm a fan.
Yeah, I'm pretty okay with that.
I do want to say this. People were calling, they wanted a point taken. I forget what fight it was. And the guy throws a spinning back fist the same time the other guy's throwing a kick. And it gets deflected into the cup. And they're like, oh, you should take a point for that because it was a bad shot. I think it was the Kulabau fight. It's like, I don't think you should take a point.
Yeah, that doesn't feel like recklessness.
That.
Yeah.
It's like they were both throwing a strike. This guy's leg got deflected into the cup. Yes, it's a bad shot, but I don't see why you would take a point for that.
So. I'm with you too. I would, his case by case basis, right? There might be times where it looks bad, like maybe there is some extra recklessness. I think it's not intent, but maybe just like a lack of control of the weapons, and that's not really what this was, at least the way you're describing it. I'm not even sure what you're talking about, to be perfectly honest. I'm not sure I remember it offhand. But yeah, I'm okay. Number one with how Mark Goddard handled this situation, taking the point here. But yeah, if it's just a situation where something gets deflected, what are they supposed to do? There's no control there. Like, potentially, if it's enough to stop the fight, then yeah, I mean, maybe you'd call it a no contest because that's an unfortunate end. But yeah, that doesn't seem like something that should be a foul.
I agree.
Especially one that will get punished by a point taken. And hey, I think we're probably at the forefront of people who are like, yeah, take the point. So for us to say that, I think hopefully that speaks volumes. But yeah, so as a result of the lost point, we ended up, instead of having Jimmy Crute lose a split decision, he ended up getting the majority draw. He had a 29-27 card because he got the round 2 from Derek Cleary, and then the other two were 28 all. Moving on along to our other title fight, there was one round scored for this one before the second round triangle finish to win the number 1 contender's belt. Yair Rodriguez, of course, getting that win over Josh Emmett, but round 1 was split. So what's happening?
Yeah, so Rodriguez came out really good, and it's like Josh Emmett looked like death on the scale, right? I don't think he had a great cut.
Didn't look great. He's a big guy. He used to fight at 55, so he came down. Years ago, but he came down.
He didn't throw a single strike for 2 minutes, and he ate some good shots from Jair, especially to the body, that left kick. Later in the round, though, Emmett does land a heavy right that sends Rodriguez to the floor. He follows him down there, and I think he lands some solid ground and pound here, especially the elbows from up top. I do think he stole the round here, so I'm on 10-9 Emmett.
No, I went the other way though. I thought the body of work from Rodriguez here, I think, overcame that. Yes, obviously he got him here, right? I just don't think that sequence was enough to overcome everything that Yair had done. It's tricky.
I mean, I got no issue with someone scoring it for Rodriguez.
Sure.
I do think he landed the heavier shots on the whole, but for his ground and pound, I thought was really solid.
No doubt. That's what's so tricky about kind of like, weighing the more impactful shots. Like, how much more do you weigh them? It's very much a sliding scale, very much a case by case kind of basis thing. It's hard to quantify that. I think this would be a very hard thing for the criteria to like quote unquote fix, right? To quantify how much more you're supposed to weigh. Like, unless you were just to explicitly say whoever lands the hardest punch wins, like that, or strike, That's like the only way you could actually truly codify it in a more meaningful way, right? But I don't think they should necessarily do that.
No, that's how a lot of fans interpret it.
Well, I think that's probably what it is. Yeah, but I wonder if maybe the one thing they could do is spell that out a little bit, where it doesn't necessarily mean whoever wins whoever lands the most hurtful strike of the round automatically wins it. There's certainly room for that, I don't know how they would necessarily clarify. It's very tricky. This is where we need to have the gray in the criteria, I think.
When we do this special episode of Scott Fontana's criteria.
Scott Fontana's criteria, that's right.
We'll iron that out.
We'll figure it out. I actually saw it in the majority, though. I saw it the same as local judge Garth Harriman, who we spoke about on that Aussie show that we did a couple weeks back, and David Leatherby, again, one of the UK judges in town. You saw it the same as Derek Cleary. Derek Cleary seems to be on the out in a lot of these cards, unfortunately, for this one. He was, but doesn't mean he was wrong.
No.
Again, you saw it this way here, so he was in. Depending on how you feel about Dan, he was in good company. But yeah, so we're just split here, and that's fine. You make a good case. You do.
Thank you.
I just went the other way. That's all it is. But it didn't matter because Yair goes out there, he finishes it. Beautiful triangle. Beautiful.
Amazing.
Let's move on though. We got 3 more fights to talk about, 1 round each. We probably don't need to go. Well, maybe this round we could talk a little bit more. I think the other 2 would probably go a little more shallow, right? Modestas Bukauskas, though, coming back to the UFC, picking up a win over Tyson Pedro in unfriendly territory. 30-27 and 229-28, unanimous win here. Round 1 is the only one that we're split on. So what's happening?
Yeah, this was a good round, I thought.
It was a decent fight.
Good fun round, I thought. Both guys were swinging hard early. Both guys connected a few times. I do think Pedro landed slightly better. He got a good takedown straight to side control. And on the ground here, he lands one solid elbow straight to like the cheekbone. I was like, oh, that one kind of made me jump in my seat a little bit. Back on the feet, I thought he cracked him with a good left right before Bukauskas ended the round, cracking him with a solid right. Close round. I lean Pedro. I do think that one elbow probably puts it over for me on the ground because I do think it was that good of a shot. So
I think I ended up just kind of grading the overall stand-up offense from Bukauskas a little heavier than you did.
Okay.
I happened to see that round for him close for sure. It was not an easy call, but I felt like Bukauskas' offense was just generally more effective. He was landing pretty well, I think, throughout. And yeah, I mean, that probably the best strike of the round. Maybe even that elbow. Fair to say?
I love that elbow.
Yeah, it's a good round. It was a good strike. But again, just like we were talking about, that doesn't necessarily put it over. It doesn't mean it can't put it over. But for me, it didn't necessarily do that. So I saw it for Bukauskas, same as Judge Evan Field, who we spoke about before. You were on the same side as Barry Foley, and a judge whose name was not in the MMA decisions database before this, Mick Maney.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, and I should point out that on the scorecards released by the UFC throughout the night, Mick Maney's surname was spelled 2 different ways. It started out, I believe, as Maney, and then later was changed to Meany.
Meany?
It was one or the other, like Meany or Maney.
McMeany.
I happened to look into it today, and I was told it is Maney, Maney.
All right.
We have a definitive answer. That is from a very reliable source with the UFC. So we've got that information. There's your scoop, guys. I got the spelling right. But yeah, so we're split here. That's fine. Not a big deal. The other 2 rounds, we'll start, I guess, with Jack Jenkins getting the win over Don Shanis. Unanimous nod, 30-27 again, twice, and 29-28. We're split in round 2 this time. I don't think we have to go deep into this, Dan. What did you kind of have to say about this?
Yeah, I thought it was a wild round. I thought Jenkins was doing better on the feet before he got the takedown, and he takes the back. He doesn't really do anything from there. He gets reversed. Back on the feet, again, Jenkins is landing pretty solid. But this is where Shanus kind of throws a wrench in it. He gets it straight down to the ground, and with a takedown, lands into mount and lands some good shots from here. A really another strong elbow. But Jenkins escapes, gets another takedown, and grabs the back while attacking a rear naked choke this time to end the round. I think Jenkins wins at 10-9.
I agree. I don't really have a lot to add, to be honest. So we saw it the same way as Derek Cleary and David Leatherby, and it was Judge Maney who was split off seeing this one for Shanus. Crazy?
Not really, no.
No, not really. No. And then our last round, Blake Bilder got the win over Shane Young in unfriendly territory once again. Unanimous decision, 30-27 twice and a 29-28. Sounding familiar here. Round 2 once again is split. So what's happening?
Yeah, Bilder starts good, good punches and kicks. Young is a little bit behind. Kind of see like they're throwing one strike at a time. No one's really putting it together. Towards the end is where Young starts finding a home for his right hand. They're pretty good shots. But on the whole, I think Bilder wins it in a close round. So 10-9 Bilder.
Yeah, I like the overall body of the effective offense from him. So I felt good there too. Same as judges Ben Cartledge and McManey. And it was against the, I guess the judge who was split off here was David Leatherby. Saw this one for Young. But crazy?
No,
certainly not.
No.
And that is it. That is it for the scoring of UFC 284. We, of course, have 5 finishes. I'd like to talk about the finishes. 2 by KO or TKO, 3 by sub. Second week in a row that we've had an event with more subs than KOs and TKOs. That's kind of rare. But 3 of these fights ended in the first round. Did you have a favorite of these 5?
Yeah, Yair Rodriguez triangle.
Yeah,
that was
hard to hate that one. You
was...
watched him set it up all the way or through.
Oh yeah,
it wasn't just. Sometimes guys just kind of like put themselves in it, right? And it's just kind of like gifted to them. Yeah, Yair built this. I really liked that. I like the setup. You kind of watched him go through the steps in a way that I think a lot of times you just don't see anymore, especially from the bottom game.
It's kind of like Emmett. It's getting dangerous, dude.
Yeah,
but defend that.
Be careful.
Do something.
Mind your P's and Q's, as Joe Rogan would like to say.
Yeah.
Does he still say that? I feel like he used to say it all the time, and I feel like he doesn't say it anymore.
Well, after he hears the show, he'll probably bring it back and then
that's true.
Say it often.
Joe Rogan is a noted listener of the Couchside Judges.
We should be on Rogan.
Yeah,
just saying. But anyway,
I'll be all right. But yeah, so you that was your favorite.
Yeah,
mine was a different submission, and it was the first submission of the career of Loma Lookboonmee, getting a second round rear naked choke on Elise Reed. I think if someone said, okay, it's going to be a rear naked choke finish in this fight, everyone would probably say Reed. So
she had the back round 1.
Yeah. Very surprising, and you could see Lookboonmee was really, really proud of herself for this one. She was super excited on social media later as well. I thought that was really great. So I definitely had to go for that one because it surprised me, especially. So good for her. Good win. And yeah.
You can. I just thought of this. You can compare rounds 1 of this fight with round 4 of the main, because it's like Reed does get the back, like Islam does have the back, but the thing is Reed's leaking everywhere.
Yeah,
so that's why it's different.
It's different.
So,
yeah. The blood kind of changes things.
Yeah, so
big differentiator. Also, some of them are men, and some of them they're a little different.
Yeah, that's true.
It happens. Anatomically speaking, different people. But that is it. We don't need to get into the physiological lesson here. We're moving on to UFC Vegas 69. I like how you put the he there.
Yeah.
And in the inner outline, it says he in parentheses. Dan had fun with that. But the main event here got a makeover over the weekend. It was going to be Tyler Santos against Aaron Blanchfield at 125 pounds, which I thought was a terrific matchup and really fascinating for Aaron Blanchfield. And then all of a sudden it gets torn asunder because Tyler Santos' injury pulls out, and she is replaced with Jessica Andrade, who, of course, is a more accomplished fighter, a former champion, and even though she's not the most recent title challenger like Tyler Santos is, I think is a much harder and more challenging opponent. So it actually makes this fight, I think, almost less interesting because I think it's going to be a much harder test for Aaron Blanchfield at this point, especially on less than a week's notice.
I think she's up for it.
I'm sure she's up for it. The girl does not lack for confidence. The woman does not lack for confidence.
Yeah, it should be fun. I think it made it a little more interesting.
I see less because I think this would have been like a really. I like the style matchup too of Santos a lot better than Andrade here. I think Andrade is very, very, very skilled in an area that Blanchfield really kind of needs to win.
All right.
That's how I look at that. It's a tough one. I will not count out Erin Blanchfield because she is such a rising star. And you never bet against Taylor Ham Country.
That's true.
North Jersey.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. I'm not saying I'm rooting for her or anything. I try to keep out of that, but you know,
I don't try to keep.
No. You don't have to. You can do whatever you want. All I'm saying is, and I'll point this out pretty much anyone who will listen. She went to high school about a block and a half from where I first moved into town, where I live right now.
All right.
At about the same time. She was probably getting out of school, walking with her friends to get lunch. Around the same time I was walking my little guy around in a stroller to get to the library. Walk past the school. Guarantee at some point I did. Just didn't know who she was. And she didn't know who I was. Or maybe she did. She didn't. But anyway, yes. I like this fight. I don't like most of this card, but I like this fight. And I want to watch it, but I was more interested in the other fight. I just thought that would be more competitive.
Okay.
But hey, I'm happy to be wrong. I mean, if Erin Blanchfield goes out there and kind of turns some heads, I mean that would be something to beat Jessica
Andrade on short notice.
Sure.
So,
having said that, she's also fighting at a more comfortable weight class than the 115 that she often fights at as well. It's not like she's going to be making a deep cut to get here. She's fought at this weight. She's competed this weight and performed at this weight. I think she can do it.
Okay. So I'm not worried about the weight. I'm more in shape still.
I bet you someone like her. She seems like someone who's pretty focused most of the time.
Okay.
We'll see. I mean, she's obviously this is a big risk for her too. If she loses this fight, it's a big setback to lose to a prospect like Erin Blanchfield too. Mm-hmm. Really, only one of these women has something to really gain here other than money, and that is Erin Blanchfield. Because I don't really know what Jessica Andrade gets out of this one. Is she going to get a title shot off this? I don't think so. So maybe she does. Who knows? But this one will be in Nevada, as all of the Apex cards are. We're still in Apex. This, of course, was the card that would have had Corey Sandhagen and Marlon Chito Vera, but that one got shifted off a few weeks ago. A little late in the game. I didn't really love the way they did that. I like that they moved it somewhere where they're going to have fans, but maybe do that like before you announce it instead of just a few weeks after, like before, when people start making, travel plans and that kind of thing. And of course they say, cards subject to change, Usually there's an injury involved, not just UFC being like, nah, we're going to tug the rug out from under you.
I remember I was listening to Rogan. I think it was Bilal Muhammad episode when they were talking about this fight. And they were like, man, this one really needs to be in front of a crowd. It's kind of stinks that it's in the Apex.
Yeah, they should have thought about that before.
So I don't know if that was the matchmaking. Like, you know what? I think they're right, maybe. Probably
they should have thought of that before.
So,
that's their job.
Yeah,
that's their job. I'm sorry. I think the matchmakers at the UFC do generally a pretty darn good job most of the time. They create competitive matchups. There's some things I don't love here and there. I think this certainly qualifies as one of them to make this matchup, which is great, but then put it somewhere where it's not great and then only to change it later when it seems like, I don't know if it was fan pressure or if they just decided, hey, we really need something for this. Was it San Antonio?
Is that where it is?
I believe it's in San Antonio. I want to say Texas judges.
Here we go.
We talk about some Texas judges. Hey.
Who deserves a crowd?
Huh.
The guy that's on this card, that's carrying this card. Outside
Alexander
of
Hernandez?
Jim F.M. Miller
is
fighting again. And he's fighting Alexander Hernandez on a 1 week's notice.
Yes, he is. Now, Jim Miller is someone who is, obviously he was already on this card. He was fighting TBA and then TBA pulled out, so they got this
Gabriel Benitez.
No, it was TBA.
What's the original?
TBD, excuse me. That was what they announced last week. It was TBD. But TBD wanted no parts of Jim Miller and said, you know what?
Jim's
I'm
fighting,
out.
we just don't know who yet.
It's not what I'm saying. We're saying two different things, sir.
That's what it came off. It's like, Jim's going to be there. Does anyone want to fight him?
Who's up for it? Who's up for it? Alexander Hernandez is like, I'll do it. That's not how he talks.
Yeah, so this one's going to be a wild first round.
Again, this is a big one for Taylor Ham Country.
Yeah, and then we'll see what happens round 2 and 3 if it gets that far.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very excited for that.
It's not pork roll. I like this fight. This one, so this card starts at 7 p.m., right? Main card, I should say. 7 p.m. Eastern time. I would say this, because this is the opener of the card, I feel like they did that because they know people want to watch this fight, and they're like, well, maybe they'll stick around for the other fights in the middle. Well, I'm going to advise you that if you don't want to do that because it's all heavyweight and light heavyweight in the middle, you could just dip out. Like, I'm not going to judge you.
No.
I will not judge you. You can be a casual here. You don't need to watch these heavyweight fights. Just skip out after Jim Miller and then come back around like 9 o'clock. That's when you'll see Andrade and Blanchfield.
Yeah.
Take a break. Take a nap. You deserve it. I think you do. I know you like one of these fights. I don't
really. Not that I like it. It's just one of those fights. It's like, okay, I do feel this one ends quick.
And that is
Zach Pauga and Jordan Wright.
Okay.
At 205. Pauga was a heavyweight. Now he's coming down. And he was in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
It's always interesting.
Do we find that former NFL players have amazing success in the UFC?
Well, Matt Mitrione wasn't terrible.
He was okay. Yeah.
And Brendan Schaub knocked out Krokop.
He did. That's true.
But Jordan Wright's kind of wild. So I do think it'd be fireworks for as long as it goes. Hopefully not all 15.
Look, I always say this. Give me a finish in 5 minutes and I'll be happy.
Yeah.
5 minutes. You go past 5, we've entered a zone that I'm just not proud of. Unless it's again, top contenders at heavyweight.
Well, this
very
is
different story.
This is 205.
Well, honestly, 205 is not like, it's kind of like the slightly better cousin. It really is. If you're outside of like the top 10, it's kind of a crapshoot. There are guys, there's certainly guys outside of that top 10 where it's like, oh, okay, yeah. But it's just a few of them. It's going to take certain ones. And even inside that top 10, someone like a heavyweight, Marcin Tybura, who is definitely in the top 10, but when you look at his fights, you're just not really excited for them unless you know he's going to beat up on Greg Hardy again, another former NFL player. But yeah, I don't really care for this card much. We will dutifully watch it because we will give you all the scoring analysis that we do every week, but I don't have to like this.
Definitely don't.
And I won't. Well, maybe I'll be wrong. That would be nice.
All right, we'll be back again, hopefully on Monday this time.
I think so. I'm rooting for us. There's no Super Bowls. I'm hoping I'm not going to get sick. You better not get sick.
I don't want to get sick.
Don't do it.
All right, I won't. Thanks for listening.
Take care, everybody. Have a great week.